Black Trash by Charles Mills explores the origin and creation of the hierarchy of racism. He begins by explaining the structure of society, by stating in order to sustain a safe, functional society, the citizens and government must agree upon a social contract. A contract that states that as long as the citizens obey the law, the government will provide safety to the community. This theory sounds reasonable and fair, but actually is the origin of racism. When it is applied to reality and politics, an unintentional hierarchy based on the classification of people arises. That is because the social contract was nullified by the white race, which gave them the freedom to engrave their egocentric bias and greed into their social policies. The definition of a citizen becomes flawed when we start to view the certain people as lesser. The white people who are creating this society categorize themselves as citizens, while the others are omitted and viewed as not worthy enough for full citizenship. Laws and policies are formed to make it impossible for others to become accepted into the community. These laws can be as blunt as saying white matrimony, or as discreet as hiring a man because his whiteness makes him more qualified than the black man. Either way, once a race is unwelcome to be citizens, it means those people no longer oblige by the social contract, which means they're not protected by the government and therefore have no reason to listen to the laws. These races of people are marked as dangerous savages simply because they are living in a lawless, barbaric state of nature. Although it is not likely they are choosing to live like this, they have no choice. Society's racist structure keeps them trapped in this substandard community that is seen as dangerous in the government's eye. The government is built to protect the citizens from the danger that the uncivilized people may bring into the community. People are identified through their race, so it's easy to distinguish where people belong in society. Jeffrey Raymond wrote Is Social Profiling Just? Making Criminal Justice Policy in the original position, explores the nature of policing based on race. He first clarifies the definition of racial profiling as any police-initiated action that relies on the race and only the race, not merely on the behavior of the person. Obviously, crime is harmful, but it is harmful to the whole society, which is why taking care of crimes in an efficient manner is so important. This does not mean that the government can do whatever it wants to address crimes. There needs to be boundaries made to distinguish the balance between society's safety and society's liberty. So the larger question comes in when we ask whether racial profiling is a just way to reduce crime in society. Although there may be some inconveniences that go along with racial profiling, especially for the targeted race, it is justified through the fact that the whole society is safer through this method. Yet it is important to note that racial profiling and racism are not the same thing, but it is very difficult to separate the two, especially in a world where racism exists. Racial profiling is known to increase the harmful effects of racism on a specific population, which is not the intention. Levy states that since racial profiling is just as long as it follows some constraints that will reduce the harm on the targeted base. Such laws include only using it during grave crimes, requiring supervision to prevent abuse, and promoting education to prevent the spread of racism. The police carefully observe the actions of black people, stigmatizing them with danger, making sure they do not overstep any boundaries. Using their race as their identity is simply another way to make it impossible for them to escape this mistreatment. The black body has been stigmatized with all different types of negative connotations in order to keep them out of the reach of the whites, making sure that they are unable to be valued enough and accepted as a full citizen. But this is all wrong. The police system and our society has extended racial profiling beyond the point where it can be just. We are no longer investigating crimes based on their race, but are identifying and categorizing people based on their race.